My name is Mark. I'm a Plains Wanderer keeper here in the sanctuary in Taronga Western Plains Zoo. So we're one of the partners that are involved in the recovery team for the Plains Wanderer. So this is actually a breeding complex for Plains Wanderer and it's one of 5 throughout the eastern states. So we've got 30 aviaries here in the complex. It's one of the biggest, I suppose, conservation complexes in Australia. So yeah, we've got pretty important health checks today. So our birds before release get their pre-release health checks before they get released in 2 weeks' time. So we've got to make sure that these birds are physically strong and healthy to make sure they can survive and thrive out in the wild. As we speak, with the 10 birds that are going to be released out into the wild, we do manage them a little bit differently. Food-wise, we do give them a couple of different species of insect scatter in their aviary so they can forage naturally. And we do have a number of different seed species and flower species that actually live out in the hay plains in each aviary as well, so they can naturally forage, I suppose, flowers and insects to give them a bit more of a chance out in the wild when they have to do it for themselves. Tricky little species. So we caught up the birds this morning at 7:30 when we've got specifically made transport boxes for these little guys. So we keep them in the box for 2 hours. So it's a nice dark, quiet area in a cool room. And this pretty much prepares the birds before we give them their anaesthetic. If we leave them in the aviaries, even though we might take out the food, we still have natural insects and natural seeds and flowers in the aviary that they can feed on. And the big worry for us is if they have food in their system, they can regurgitate. So that's basically the main thing we got to do for these birds, keep them quiet, and then we'll drive them down to the Wildlife Hospital to give them the most important health check to date.
My name is Dr. Ben Bryant. I'm the Senior Veterinarian at Taronga Western Plains Zoo. So the most important part of the job today is to individually assess the health of each bird and absolutely satisfy ourselves that they're in optimal physical condition to cope with release and surviving in the wild. And an additional part of the job today is to attach radio transmitter devices by specially developed harnesses that will enable us to track each bird subsequent to their release. So it's very important to ensure that the candidate birds for release are in optimal health before we send them out. And so the way we do that is that each bird is examined under anaesthesia by an expert wildlife veterinarian and physically examined, and so that's really important. I mean, you know, we obviously need to ensure that the bird is in good body condition, that it's well muscled, that it has the best capacity to negotiate its environment, so that it's got normal limbs, normal wings, feathers, plumage, good flight function. We need to know that its sensory organs are normal, so that it can perceive its environment optimally and thereby negotiate its environment once that it's been released. So we check their eyes, their ears, we look in their mouth, in their beak, and then we take additional samples to run laboratory checks to make sure that all of their laboratory parameters are optimal as well. So we do that by taking a small blood sample from each bird and running routine hematology and biochemistry, and that suite of tests gives us a huge array of information that we can add to the data that we collect on the clinical exam and use that to make a decision relevant to each bird as to whether they are releasable or not. You know, we're still waiting on the results of the laboratory tests on blood and also laboratory tests on faeces, which also gives us information before we make the final call. And once we have all that data to hand, we'll be in a position to decide who's going to be sort of team one to go out.